Good morning, students. I hope that you all are doing good. And today we are going to start a new chapter, that is chapter number 12, the endocrine system. This is the last chapter of your syllabus, and after this we are going to revise all the chapters one by one, or maybe we can take 2 chapters in a video. I will give you the important questions from these chapters and we can discuss in the physical class. Now in this chapter, the endocrine system, it is totally based on the hormones. I think you are familiar with the hormones because in the previous classes you must have done about the hormones, about the endocrine system. So I hope that you are having a brief knowledge of this. Now as you know that there are various organs in the body of organisms and they work in harmony and in a coordinated fashion. Now timing and performance of every system is very much important, and also the internal environment of an organism is very much important. Now for example, the gastric juice and the bile juice and pancreatic juice, that means all the juices which is secreted during the process of digestion, it can take place only when there is food, because the enzymes, they act on the food and they used to just digest that food. So it is possible only whenever the food is available in the body. Now there are various chemical regulators in the body which is known as the hormones, and they are having their own individual function. Basically our body is controlled by 2 important mechanisms. Number first is obviously the nervous system, in which the brain is there, the spinal cord is there, and the nerves, the neurons are there, and the information or the message in the body travels in the form of impulses. So number first is the nervous control, that means neural control, and the second one is the chemical control, which is regulated by the hormones. Now these hormones are basically secreted by endocrine and exocrine glands, and we will discuss about this. Now there is a difference between hormonal and nervous control which is very important to learn. The functioning of hormonal control is usually slow. It is not very much quick. The response is generated in the body is very much slow. However, in case of nervous neuron or nervous control, it is very much immediate and rapid. As you know that the reflex action takes place in our body, and some of the decisions is already done by the already our spinal cord decides what to do due to the reflex action, and most of the activities is controlled by the brain. Now secondly, in case of hormonal control, they transmit it through blood. That means they get dissolved in the blood and transmitted to entire part of the body. While in case of nervous system, there is a pathway which is known as the neuron, and the impulses are traveled in these neurons. So there is a particular pathway for this. Now thirdly, in case of hormonal control, it affects different organs, or we can say widespread of the body, because in the blood whenever it gets mixed, it can run to entire part of the body. But in case of nervous control, it affects only the particular gland or particular muscle. That means it will affect only on the effector. Fourth is hormonal control. The hormonal control, the effect is too short. It is not for a long time. It doesn't show the prolonged effect. But in case of nervous control, effect only for short life. The nervous control, it takes place for only a short period of time. Now fifth, hormonal control can affect growth. The dwarfism, giantism, all these kind of growth is controlled by the hormones, which we will discuss in the chapter. But in case of nervous control, there is no effect on the growth. It is basically just the relationship between the stimulus and the response. Next, in hormonal control, it can bring about specific and chemical changes. That means it regulates the metabolism, of fat, proteins, carbohydrates in the body. But this type of influence is generally not shown by the nervous control. So nervous control, it cannot regulate the metabolism in the body. Next, when we talk about hormonal control, it cannot be modified because it is released by the endocrine glands, released by the exocrine glands, and it gets mixed in the blood. And it is not exactly like you are just modifying it from your previous knowledge. There is nothing related to this. But in case of nervous control, yes, it can be modified. There are previous learning experiences by which we can modify it. That means there is no role of sympathetic or parasympathetic in hormonal control, where it is there in the nervous control. So these are the basic difference between hormonal control and nervous control. And there are hormones, that means which is secreted by the endocrine and the exocrine glands, and they affect only the target gland. That means on a particular organ in which they have to show their effect, they will show their effect only on that target organ. Now, most hormones are secreted by the special gland known as endocrine glands. Now, endocrine glands, they release their secretion directly into the blood. The very important thing to remember here is they secrete their hormones directly into the blood. That means there is no duct, so it is ductless. There is no duct through which the hormone can pass. No, it will directly goes into the blood. It gets mixed with the blood. While in case of endocrine gland, there is particular pathway, there is particular gland or duct through which these hormones are transferred. So this is a difference between an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland. Some glands, they are both endocrine and exocrine. For example, the pancreas, so we called it as heterocrine glands. Now, there are general properties of hormones, which is very important to remember, that hormones are secreted from the source. That means there is a particular source, particular gland from where the hormone is produced. And there are 4 important glands in this chapter which we have to learn. We will do it later. Next, they regulate the physiological process. The physiological process, the activities of the body, it take place by the help of these hormones, and they affect the enzyme system of the body. They also affect the release or the secretion of the enzymes by the body. Next, they act on the target organs. Very important to remember that they will act only the target organ, on the organ with which they have to show their effect. They will affect only that particular target organ. Next, hormone produced in one species usually show similar influence in the other species. Now, the hormones which is produced by one species, or we can say that the hormones which is produced in the body of human, it will show the same impact in the body of the other human. Next, they are produced in very small quantities. Very important to remember that it doesn't require in a large amount. A very small quantity can do the metabolical activity in the body, can do all kind of regulation in the body, and it is biologically very active in nature. Now, when we talk about chemically, the hormones, they are made up of peptide, that is, for example, proteins such as insulin, which are water soluble, and some are amines which is derived from amino acids such as adrenaline. So basically it is made up of peptides, proteins. Proteins are commonly found in the enzymes. This is very important to remember. And some are water soluble hormones, for example steroids, which is derived from cholesterol, such as testosterone. Testosterone is the hormone which is produced in the male and which is lipid soluble. That means they are also fat soluble. Now, very important to remember in this chapter, and that you have to learn this, what will happen if the concentration of the hormones increases or decreases in the body. Of course, there will be some symptoms which is generally shown. That means it can let you in trouble if the secretion increases or decreases in the body. So hypersecretion or hyposecretion, both can influence your body. Next, hormones are not stored in the body. The last thing to remember, that hormones, as soon as they show their effect on the target organ, they get destroyed. They are not stored for a long time in our body. So this is the general properties of the hormones, and The important thing to remember here is the difference between the hormonal control and the nervous control. Secondly, you must know about the difference between endocrine and exocrine glands, and very important to learn in this about the chemical nature of the hormone, that from which substance it is made, and what will happen if the concentration increases or decreases. And the other thing to remember here is that the functioning of the endocrine gland, it is basically, or the amount of the hormone that need to be released by the body is basically controlled directly or indirectly by the nervous system. That means there is a brain which is act as the controlling center of the body, so it is also attached with the nervous system. Now some hormones are there, certain hormones which are secreted outside the body, and this type of hormones are known as pheromones or ectohormones. They generally help in recognition of sex, mating behavior, and alarm reaction in insects. So apart from humans, the insects, they also having this type of hormones, and in the plants also, which we have done that they are having hormones such as auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, abscisic acid. So their body is also controlled by the amount of hormone released in their body. Now sometimes the difference is basically asked between the endocrine and exocrine gland. So I am giving you a short important tips for endocrine and exocrine gland. Now first, when we talk about the endocrine gland, first of all, very important to remember that it is without duct, so it is known as the ductless glands. Secondly, the secretion is directly poured into the blood, which I already told, and these get mixed in the blood and move to entire part of the body. Now what kind of secretion they are generally produce? They are generally producing the hormones or the chemical messengers in the body. Now they show a prolonged effect. However, it is not get stored in for a long time, but in comparison to the exocrine glands, they show a prolonged effect, and they are just released in the small quantity by the body. By a particular gland, it is generally released in a smaller quantity. But the important thing to remember here is that the small quantity, if there is any change in the amount of the secretion, it can lead to disorder or abnormalities in the body. So this is the key points to remember for the endocrine glands. And some of the example of endocrine glands are thyroid gland, pituitary gland, adrenal gland, pancreas, ovaries, and testes. All comes under endocrine glands. Now when we talk about exocrine glands, now exocrine glands is opposite to the endocrine glands. First of all, they are with ducts. That means there are ducts are there through which it can pass to the different target organ. Secondly, the secretion is always in the duct. Since they are having the duct, they are having the channels through which it can transfer. Now, what kind of secretion they are generally producing? They are generally producing the digestive juices, as well as they generally produce the chemical messengers. Now, in comparison to endocrine glands, they are having a brief effect or short effect is there on the glands, on the target organ, and they are released in a larger quantity in comparison to the endocrine glands. But here, if there is small change in the quantity, there will be no disorder. You will not having any problems in the body. And some of the examples are of exocrine glands are salivary glands, gastric glands are there, intestinal glands are there, sebaceous glands, and sweat glands. So these all are the examples of exocrine glands. So students, in this video we have not started any particular gland, but we have just seen a brief outlook of endocrine and exocrine glands, how the hormone works and what are the general properties of hormones. In the next video we are going to discuss about the particular glands which is given in the chapter. Till then, take care, watch the video and have a great day. Thank you.